Well, hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Williams, Senior Editor at MGMA and host of the MGMA Podcast Network. We are back with another interview and recording with one of our MGMA members. And today we're joined by Allen Alongi. Allen is an MGMA member. He also is newly appointed to our Human Resources and Compliance Advisory Board. We are really excited about that. You're probably going to hear me talk about that advisory board a lot over the next year because it's new and it's something that we want to do so we can take an even deeper dive in creating content, products, training, and development for the MGMA members. So with all that said, Allen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be on. A big fan of your podcast as well. So to be on it is actually kind of full circle. So thank you.
That is so cool. Those are the best kind of guests. Get people who are listening to the show and enjoying it and know what we're talking about. We were talking offline and I heard you talking to our producer, James, talking about where you are and where you've been. So remind me, you and I just talked a week or two ago and I want to make sure I got it right. Where are you stationed? Where do you live right now?
Yeah, I'm actually in Marietta, Georgia,
Right.
working with Northside Hospital as a physician practice manager for the Physician Enterprise. So really within that role, overseeing a portfolio of clinics within the Atlanta market.
Okay.
Wear a lot of different hats, but day to day in the clinics, acting as a mentor for our coordinators who are our managers of the clinics, overseeing operations, oversight of P&L as well. So really a lot of everything, just like you typically experience within operations. One of the good things though that I really enjoy about this job recently is just more of the autonomy to complete projects as needed. A lot of those are driven by our strategic initiatives, and those are mainly right now retention and patient experience. So working on those and just plugging away and just doing what I can to create a better opportunity for our patients to get in and to develop some of our coordinators at the clinics.
Okay. I'm going to take some of maybe you and some of our listeners back, but when I was growing up in the 80s, I used to watch pro wrestling that was beamed out of Atlanta, and one of the big draws there was Bob Armstrong, who was from Marietta. That's how I know Marietta. He was also a fireman. They used to talk about that he was an active fireman and a professional wrestler.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but some of the big stars there. I know Nature Boy Ric Flair. He was huge back then when I was watching as a kid. I think he wrestled a couple of years ago or recently. It was.
No, definitely. I remember the WWE Monday nights, and those used to be a thing back growing up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you're pretty new to Marietta in Georgia, is that correct?
Yeah, I've actually about a year and a month been out here with Northside, was in Houston for about a year and a month as well before that, and then New Orleans all times before that.
Okay. And you grew up in New Orleans, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a lot of family. My aunt and uncle, they both have passed away, but they would be close to 100 now, but they were in New Orleans, so we used to visit there. I've still got their kids or my cousins. They're in I think Metairie there in New Orleans, and I've got a brother there as well. What part of New Orleans did you grow up in?
Yeah, so right outside, my dad was lived uptown. He was a New Orleans police officer for 30 years. My mother as well lived uptown, but they moved to the Metairie Harahan area.
Okay.
Not too far from Metairie at all, but yeah, I also miss it as well. I mean, I love the opportunity here, and I would never trade Marietta in. It's just an amazing place. But I do miss the food.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that's the tough one. That's
the food's the best. The food's the best there. It's so good. Well, we're so glad you're here. So what I'm doing is we're just having deeper conversations with our MGMA members to really understand their story. So talk a little bit about that healthcare journey. How'd you get interested in it in the first place?
Sure. A couple of different things happened, but the main thing for me was when I was 14, I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
And kind of a critical event that got me there, where unfortunately I went into a coma for a few days, woke up, was in the children's hospital, and didn't know what was going on. But from that point on, there was a lot of interactions with neurologists, with endocrinologists, physical therapists for a whole journey until I got out of the hospital. And then, of course, subsequently following up with those things more regularly, where I was forced into healthcare, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
But from that standpoint, I've always kind of been a leader in what I do. I play rugby as well as, in my current professional career. And I've always felt that desire to do as much as possible with that ability. And at first, I started in hospitality in New Orleans,
Okay.
right? It's the lifeblood there. Then I made a decision after I really just started thinking critically about not only job security, but then about what I could do and what I could offer. So then I jumped into a little bit on I worked with American Diabetes Association as a project manager, ironically, throwing on the Tour de Cures as well as the big events that they had within the South Louisiana market. From there, I actually transitioned over into the academic medicine side with LSU Health in New Orleans, where I was working as a department coordinator for the Cardiovascular Center of Excellence. And then from there, went over to residency coordinator with general surgery and critical care fellowship. So that was the experience that got my mind thinking even further about where I wanted to go with healthcare. And having a lot of surgeons on our residency team, going to the actual hospital and seeing them in action, I was like, this is where I need to be. I don't need to be behind this desk. And that is what kind of drove me to get some more certifications, to drive myself to be more marketable for those types of roles. Unfortunately, I ended up in a role with HCA at Tulane. I was there for about 2.5 years overseeing the Tulane Institute of Sports Medicine,
Okay.
which was an absolute animal.
Yeah.
Exposure, if you're asking like what you get in that first, I learned it all. And, you know, I think in that experience, learning to deal with providers, learning to deal with the ins and outs of how things work, learning how to deal with staffing, and obviously staffing is the crux of a lot of our challenges. So that experience was probably one of the best in my careers, and it reinforced that I am where I wanted to be. From there, I actually kind of branched out a bit, left the home, wanted to find more opportunities that may have not have been available there. So I ended up as a director of operations for an allergy and ENT organization out in
Mhm.
Houston. Another great experience, was there about a year and a month. Had some real high level experience as far as opening de novo clinics, bringing on new providers as well, and just really expanding the bandwidth of access for that group. And then from there, our dream, I think I had mentioned it last week, was we always wanted to live near the mountains.
Mhm.
So, we started looking out, and we're not quite there, but we're close enough.
Yeah.
So we we looked to Northside, and actually a headhunter group had reached out to me because I was showing some interest, and the rest is history. So now at Northside, it's just been a great organization, the best I've ever been a part of. They're really focused on retention, and I think that's a big thing, not only for our frontline staff, but for managers as well, who want to actually grow. And that's all I want to do is grow. So I'm in a good spot now.
That is incredible. What a great story. And it sounds like you've gotten a real variety of opportunities. It's just not exactly a replication of the same thing. You've really branched out. One of the things you did years ago, I guess, or you'd have to tell me how long ago, but you connected with MGMA. I'm always curious about that. When we do talk to an MGMA member, what was the gateway? How'd you hear about MGMA? When was that introduction made?
Yeah, so ironically, in the last role I was in, the group was thinking like, how can we get our managers and directors to a level where every single facet of the industry is something that they're familiar with. So as a director of operations, I've had a lot of lived experiences in the roles, right? That kind of taught me what to do and when to do it. But then once they introduced me to NGMA and I started taking a look, I was like, wait a second, I do a lot of this stuff already. And actually, this is the stuff that I want to learn more of.
Yeah.
So they purchased the initial ACMP package for me.
Okay.
So from there, I just started reading the book, and I was like, these are a lot of parallels here. And then ironically, right, how it aligns with what I want to do and where I want to grow. I think that, looking not just at the certification, but what MGMA has otherwise, now that's one of my main sources when I'm looking for insight articles, when I'm looking for data to support decision making, or just primarily looking for any kind of trends or evolving technologies that we might not be using that we could
Mm.
be. And that is just, it's a breadth of knowledge. It's great to know that something like MGMA exists, especially when you didn't at first, because it opens a lot of opportunities. And, furthermore, I promote MGMA all the time to
Good.
my manager team. So we had our manager meeting this morning, and I always leave them with an article to take away, just so we can learn a little more. So we're growing. So we're not just going stagnant with what we're doing day to day. And MGMA has been a terrific resource for that.
That's fantastic. And the way you and I met, we put out a volunteer opportunity for the Human Resources and Compliance, advisory board, and we connected that way because there are those volunteer opportunities where you can go and give back, that sort of thing. Now, remind me, because you and I did talk, but then I talked to like 10 other advisory board members, and some of the conversations are mixing together. Had you written some articles for MGMA as well? Tell us about that if you did.
Yeah, this past year actually, I wrote three different articles. They were inside articles.
Wow.
I started looking ahead and thinking about like what I can do more to contribute to
Hmm.
the space, and with what knowledge I had. So I released a couple different articles. My most recent one was one more focused on the mentee journey and
Okay.
kind of guiding with that how you interact with your mentor, what you're going to get out of that mentorship, and how you can apply it to your future growth. Some others have been more about feedback loops, how we
Hmm.
really value the voice of the patient, but we might undervalue the voice of the employee. So using those two together to kind of come to an agreement on a decision, what should be done. That has been something that I've really kind of been thinking about. So I was happy to
Yeah.
get that on paper. And then some others are more practical. My other article is about practical solutions, more or less in the clinics that we experience day to day. So, like, what is it where staffing is completely overburdened by one task and they can't do something else, and just focusing on tools and tips on how to fix that in a realistic environment. So, whether it's centralized refill prescription pools, or whether it's cross training or things like that that are really going to make your job easier. I just wanted to, write that up and kind of see if anyone got any value out of it. And it looks like MGMA has, and I really appreciate it. Still got to wait to get that magazine in a
Oh,
in a
yeah.
shadow box in my office, but I'll let my wife handle that. But it's been great, and yeah, and you both have all been very very welcoming on that, and very appreciative. And since then, it seems like something I'm going to make a regular thing.
That's cool. So, do you talk about the writing? Because not everybody wants to write articles. Is that something you've always enjoyed doing, being a writer as well? Or where did that come about?
Yeah, if I could choose my dream job, I would be an author. I started reading when I was way younger, 5, 6, and
Yeah.
then really started getting into really just more classical literature. And something that I really really admire is the old classics. My favorite, and I quoted it in the last article I wrote, of course, is the Count of Monte Cristo.
Hmm.
For me, I've always thought to myself, like, I feel like I have something inside of me that I can put on paper, like I feel it, but I don't maybe have it contained yet.
Yeah.
So I really read a lot and absorbed a lot at a young age. And then for me, I just started finding myself writing more. And, I really kind of just try and pivot off of experiences I have in life. I haven't wrote anything more than what you've seen now with the articles, but in my previous roles, I was writing press releases for
Hmm.
the New Orleans Convention and Visitors Bureau, was also releasing some articles for LSU Health as well. So that being in that professional setting got my wheels spinning a little bit more. And, this has been more of an open, more just like feature pieces, which I really enjoy do. There's not really many guardrails on it. It's just give us what you got. But yeah, I think in my youth, just reading a lot and just reading really religiously was something that I always enjoyed. And I think that's what carried over to me wanting to write as much.
I'm trying to remember, was there a connection then? Because I haven't been privy to reading your article yet.
Yeah.
Is there something in there about mentors or mentees or something that you pulled from that where
Yeah.
you thought it really made a connection?
Absolutely. The main connection was Edmond Dantes and the Abe. So when he goes to prison, he of course meets his what was the word? Unserendipitous or
Yeah.
serendipitous
Yeah.
cellmate
Okay.
who essentially was in there. They're all political prisoners. They were innocent, but they were all together. And from there, the Abe took him under his wing. He taught him philosophy. He taught him
Okay.
languages. He taught him mathematics, science, everything that he didn't have. That in that journey, of course, being in prison, that's the irony of it, right? He's learning all of this stuff in a place where, dreams go to die,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So from there, and Abe introduced him, he grew to trust him. And then he said, I do have this treasure map, right? That was like one of the last few things. And so with all that experience and Edmond being a receptive mentee, being the key there,
Wow.
actually absorbing and wanting to learn, he wrote his own destiny. And I think that's such a really strong parallel. And I love that it happens to be in the kind of Monte Cristo because I love the book, but bringing that example over into the article, I think really helps it tie it together. And anybody can take a read or a look at the movie and see exactly what I'm talking about. But
Right.
I think it's just that that forced companionship they had ended
Yeah.
up changing the course of his life. So that was really strong for me.
Yeah, I'm going into my memory banks because I've read that and I've also read The Man in the Iron Mask. And
Yeah.
so I'm getting the two. I'm going to have to pull up both books
Yeah.
and read about them just to clarify them in my mind. So I'm so glad that you've kind of opened that door for me. I've
Yeah.
been going back this year and reading a lot of the classics. And so it's been really cool. So I did want to follow up and ask you, is
Yeah.
there a favorite author or two that you just love or want to recommend to anybody here?
Yeah, I mean Alexander Dumas, who wrote that, is great. He also did The Three Musketeers, which I
Right.
like as well.
That's right.
I really one not a more classical one, but one series I really loved growing up was Lemony Snicket, a
Okay.
series of unfortunate events. Kind of had a little parallels. I had two brothers. There were three kids together, and they went through a lot of like troubles in their youth, which we did have in my life. So I really clung on to that. I was like, look at this journey. Like, where are they going? So I really enjoyed them. Besides that, I mean, just putting me on the spot. Other classics that I can think of. Stephen King. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been a fan. I'm not too not too associated with the horror genre, but
Right.
he really has a way of storytelling that really just gets you captivated. And another big one would be Thomas Wolfe,
Mm-hmm.
Look Homeward Angel. Oh,
Yep.
very strong American stream of conscious thought and writing. That's kind of the stuff that, when before you write, you're thinking about what to write.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, this guy put it down in such a genius way. I was like, I need to read more of this. So those are some off the top of my
Yeah.
head. There's definitely a few more, but those are some of my favorites.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Yeah, I have this quote from the writer, short story writer Raymond Carver. He was asked about who his influences were, and he said, "Well, I really like a lot of writers. Two people, you think about Thomas Wolfe, he would add to the story, put his original story down, and then he would keep adding words and adding words and adding words. But then he also compared to F. Scott Fitzgerald, who would
Yeah,
just take
love him.
out, take out till every single word counted that was left in there, like in The Great Gatsby. You know that
Mhm.
every word is in there for a reason. And Thomas Wolfe, yes, it is
Expansive.
very expansive is the exact word I was
Hmm.
going to use. There's so much. And then Carver, for anybody who read him, he was known for being a minimalist. He wrote short stories in the 70s and 80s. And so there's all kinds of writing. And so it's so cool to be able to do that. And I did want to
Yeah.
ask you, you may not know, but we do have an MGMA book club. So these aren't classics.
I didn't
These
know.
are leadership books, but we have really cool discussions about the books. So you and I can
Cool.
connect offline, but honestly, you could go to
Love that.
mgma.com and you could just type book club in there and it would show up. But for
Okay.
everybody listening, because we've had a book discussion now, and this is what we like to do, we like to go kind of off, on the tangent of the guest and really connect with them in a certain way. And we meet the third Wednesday of each month, unless there's a holiday or something comes up. But we just
Okay.
had a book club meeting yesterday, and the book was Shatterproof by Tasha Eurich. It's a leadership
Okay.
book about resilience and how to really build resilience, but also even go beyond that. She even challenges the idea of maybe our resilience for some people gets up to the level where we can't be any more resilient and we need other types of tools to really combat the chaos she talks about there. So that's really cool. And
Yeah.
then I'll put in a plug for our December 17th book club for you, Allen, or any other MGMA member that wants to join us. We're going to be talking about Align the Mind. Align, ALIGN, Align the Mind. And that's written by Britt Frank, who was a keynote speaker at one of our MGMA conferences last spring. So it's one that really helps people deal with burnout, stress, and all of that, how we can really align things and be able to kind of develop some armor so we can work through it. So yeah, I love talking. I could talk about books all day. That's my passion. So that is just so cool. Just to share, I've been working through a lot of Southern writers, maybe one of the most famous Louisiana writers, Walker Percy. He won the National Book Award for The Moviegoer. It's set in New Orleans and in that area. And he wrote 6 novels, and I just finished the 6th one, The Thanatos Syndrome, about a month ago. So he is a sort of an existential philosophical novelist, Walker Percy. He wrote in the 60s, 70s, and 80s before he passed away. And so he's a terrific novelist, really challenges morality and how we view spirituality and lots of things of that nature. So really wonderful, wonderful writer.
It's I definitely want to, and I'm glad you said that because I'm almost done The East of Eden by Steinbeck, which is an absolute massive novel.
It is. It's so
it's
big.
taken me a while.
Yeah.
But that similar to what you were saying, being able to put in normal human interactions in a very digestible way that makes you think that you were in that position. That's the beauty of writing, right? Like I imagine that I'm in the 20s, like that I'm in California in Salinas Valley, right? Like that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. And so now I got to finish this one so I can get to the book club in time. So.
There you go. Yeah, it's funny. I love Steinbeck. I love the novellas as well, like The Red Pony and the Pearl, because like you said, East of Eden and Grapes of Wrath are massive novels. And I had agreed. I used to appear on a radio show back in the 2000s, or right around 2000, 2001. And I think it was the 75th. There was a special anniversary of the Grapes of Wrath. It might have been, maybe it was the 50th or 60th anniversary. I'm trying to do the math in my head. And I wasn't sure I was going to finish it before we went live with the radio show. So I had to do some late night reading, but I love the book, and he's a wonderful writer. So everybody's wondering, why are we talking about books so much? But, I think it's really one of those things about finding passion in life. You and I connected on that. We connected on some things about my daughter and your son and the things that they're either working with or dealing with in life, and really being able to be, it's so important in life, because when we identify only perhaps with a job, and the job can maybe be really, really, really tough, what are those things we can take outside of it? You talked about the mountains up there in Georgia. I love that area. I've been whitewater rafting up there and hiking up there, and the Ocoee and all that. And so you got to really find those things that you're so passionate about. And so to be able to connect on books, and people who listen to the podcast, we know will go down a rabbit hole there and really find what people are passionate about. So thank you for sharing so much about your book passion with us. And we're going to get you, if we can, to join the book club as well.
I think I signed up. I think I've just signed up.
Oh my gosh. So you're a multitasker while we do that. So that is so cool. So before we sign off, I want to be careful and look at the time here. Before we sign off today, what else would you like to share? I want to hone in on the mentor-mentee aspect of it. That's something you're familiar with. It's something you've written an article about. If someone wants to get involved in a program, MGMA has theirs, but if someone finds it in their own organization, how do you get the most out of a mentor or mentee program? What advice would you give us?
Yeah, great question. So I think the most important thing is that a lot of people look at the mentor-mentee relationship as one-way communication. So the mentor giving advice to the mentee. So, hey, do this way. Um, I think that that's a little not flawed, but I think that's traditional. And I think that nowadays we have to look at what you want to get out of that
Hmm.
yourself. So the way I phrased it in the article is more or less that you're being mentored, but you're also going to teach yourself how to become that mentor. And we're not always mentees forever. So you have keeping that in the forefront of your mind. Those are the kind of questions you want to ask. It's not just about what you do to get to this level. It's like, what do you think I should do more of? Or how can I engage more? How can I actually be more present? Those are the kind of things that if you really want to grow and you really want to engage and get the most out of that mentorship, it's that you're preparing for it. You have
Hmm.
proper preparation. You're right. You're not wasting your mentor's time. And I know it's not a waste of time in any matter of that fact, but if you're going in there with just the same old questions or maybe just running in to just say, hey, I was here for the meeting, great. You get a checkbox, but you're not getting the most out of that. For me personally, I've been a frontline worker. I've been in through all the different levels
Yeah.
going up. So for me, I had to latch on to those mentors that I found
Right.
value in, right? So one of my previous roles, it was actually a doctor. And, I'm not saying that I would learn a lot management from them, but what I did learn a lot of was prioritization,
Hmm.
the way to speak to people the correct
Yeah.
way. And mainly just keeping focus, calm, and understanding that, you're a representation of your work, whether you're saying something or you're looking a certain way.
Yeah.
So just learning those little ins and outs really kind of helped drive me to the next level there. But as far as like the mentee approach, so in my article, I did give some good tools as far as like questions you can ask. There is like a measure up assessment to say, how much am I getting out of it? What am I doing? So you can kind of put yourself in a level to say, maybe I'm not doing as much as I should, or maybe I'm doing so much that I should. So I found that a little helpful as well too. But getting onto your point about the programs, not with MGMA currently, but with ACHE, I am
Yeah.
in the mentorship program. I actually signed up as a mentee
Wow.
this year because for me, I said, what more can I learn? Even though I've done these levels,
Right.
I want to be a mentee. So I do have a mentee. His COO, his name's Bobby Ryan of Apollo MD. We met up for lunch for Halloween Day, which is pretty funny when you see your server dressed as Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But it was good. And he was the same way. He was just very, very open and honest and saying, what do you want to get out of it? And
Yeah.
from there, it was just an instant click. So, just engaging them, being involved in those programs, they will make you well-rounded, not too hyper-focused in one area, being more well-rounded so you can reach those next levels. But I think it is a little bit more what you said earlier is just growing
Yeah.
comfortable and trying to understand that if you really want to grow to that next level, you got to put in the effort.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Allen Alongi, thank you so much for joining us on the MGMA podcast.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And everybody listening, I mean, Alan and I went into a deep dive about books. We went into mentoring. We went into a lot of different topics. And this is something that we want to do with the podcast and we want to do with other training and tools and development for our MGMA members in 2026. We really want to provide a conduit, a platform where people can connect. That is what I keep hearing over and over again from MGMA members. They'll say, well, I got this, I got the fellowship, or I got this other certification, this other program. But what really meant a lot to me was the connections I made, because now I've got people on speed dial that I see every year at the Leaders Conference or at a spring show. And we're going through those same challenges, but maybe we live across the country from each other. But those some of those challenges in healthcare can be universal. So we really want to be able to bring a place where y'all can connect and you can learn from each other. So I'm going to put a lot of links in the episode show notes about books and mentoring and Alan's 3 articles and a lot of other good stuff. So you can be on the lookout for that. So until then, thank you all for being MGMA podcast listeners.